We welcome you to another edition of Snap the Pigskin. Hello, everybody. Week 2 of the NFL season wrapped up in the books, and week 3 is going to get underway. Let's jump right into it today on an episode of Snap the Pigskin. Noah Clark, joined by Kedrick Stumbris. Happy whatever day it is, but it is gorgeous out here in the great state of Wisconsin. Sunny, it is warm, and I will say this though,
You will?
yeah, I cannot wait. I cannot wait for fall. Cannot wait for fall because it's been a little bit too warm as of recently. Now that might be the climate change. I don't know how the weather works, but that is what it is. But yeah, it's good to see your face.
Okay, good to see you.
Before we start, though, we get into our news of the week here. Got to give a big shout out to the NFL because on this day, 104 years ago, the NFL was founded in a small little town called Canton, Ohio. And from that day on, America's greatest sport was made. So happy birthday to the NFL. 104 years. Next year's going to be 105, which is insane.
Oh, good thing you told me that part.
Yeah.
I would have had no idea what would come next.
I know, insane, crazy stuff. But
do you think our listeners can count from 4 to 5?
I think they can.
Okay.
I hope our listeners can count from 4 to 5. If you can't count from 4 to 5, I mean,
good thing you told them how to.
Yeah, but also too, it's hard for me to count from 4 to 5. I have to use my
that I believe. That I believe.
I have to use my fingers sometimes. So, we got news of the week. We got our news of the week: first, second, third, fourth downs. So let's get into it. First down, upsets galore. Kedrick, this was a fun week for upsets. Holy cow! When I say it was a fun week, I mean it was a pretty fun week. Now, some of the score sheets may not look exciting, but still, it was pretty exciting overall because everybody loves a good upset, you know. The Vikings beating the Niners in Minnesota. Sam Darnold cooking for the Niners. The Vikings. Did not think I would say that, though. Eagles upset by the Falcons on Monday Night Football. The Saints beating the bricks off the Cowboys. It almost is reminiscent to what the Packers did back in January earlier this year. So tough break for the Saints. The Raiders beating the Baltimore Ravens in Baltimore as well. They were down by 10. They came back, won the game against the Ravens. Incredible stuff from the Las Vegas Raiders. Almost said Oakland Raiders. And then probably the biggest one of the week, the Tampa Bay Bucks exercising some huge demons, beating the Detroit Lions, who ended their season last year in the postseason. They go to 2-0. Baker Mayfield and company starting to look pretty good here early on in the season. Man, Kedrick, out of all these upsets, I mean, there was a lot of upsets. I was thrilled to see the Lions lose, the Eagles lose, and the Cowboys lose, and the Niners lose, all in a span of 2 days. Very, very fun stuff.
I'm allowed to talk now?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I was asked on Game On Wisconsin when I did a guest spot with them yesterday after the Packers game, what is more surprising? The Saints are 2-0 or the Ravens are 0-2? Oh, no, it was the Vikings are 2-0. Sorry, the Vikings are 2-0, or the Ravens are 0-2. And I think that question kind of put into perspective, like, of course, just how crazy the first couple of weeks of the NFL season are every year. You're never 100% sure what every team looks like in actuality when you put them on the field. But it definitely shocking in the way that both the Vikings and Ravens have kind of played each one of the best and one of the worst teams in the NFL, each playing a Super Bowl participant, and then the other playing, getting the Vikings dismantling the Patriots, right? Yeah, what a week. the biggest surprise to me, I think, is the Saints beating the hell out of the Cowboys.
Oh my God.
Particularly considering, yes, the Cowboys played a weakened Cleveland Browns team last week, didn't have either of its starting tackles, but for a team that we still think has division championship aspirations, a Saints team that I don't think you or I were particularly high on coming into the season at all.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that I think the Saints are legit, I think are going to contend for that division. And all of a sudden, this NFC South doesn't look like the dumpster fire we thought it was, with three pretty good teams at the top. The Bucks beating the Lions doesn't do a lot for me. I mean, that's a rematch in the NFC Championship game. You can see that going either way. Yeah, the Raiders getting a win is big too, but I think it's got to be the Saints over the Cowboys for me, and just the way that they dismantled them, and the way that Cowboys offense just couldn't do anything this week.
Yeah. I mean, it was kind of crazy. The flip from how New Orleans, the flip from just how the Cowboys a week ago dominated the Cleveland Browns and dominated one of the best defenses in the NFL last year, the previous year in Cleveland. This week, play at home opener against the Saints, and just get absolutely boat raced out of that building. And it wasn't even close. And Alvin Kamara too had himself quite the day too. I mean, we haven't seen Alvin Kamara as much in the recent years because due to injury, but holy cow.
Yep.
That was
5.8 yards per carry. Have a day. Have a day. Yep. 3 touchdowns. Yep. Have a freaking day. Alvin
that
Kamara
was really impressive. I would say that's also impressive, but I think Minnesota's win was also kind of impressive. I mean, because the Saints are kind of in the same thing with the Saints can be said for the Vikings. We had this team kind of locked in as a team that would finish kind of bottom of the league, bottom of that division. They weren't really going to be doing anything. They let go of Kirk Cousins. You know, they had to just kind of retool everything. They lost TJ Hawkinson through the first 2 weeks. I mean, holy cow, they dominated the Giants, which I understand, yes, it's the Giants. But then how about you go in to your home opener against the defending NFC champion San Francisco 49ers and absolutely go toe-to-toe with them. And for Sam Darnold of all people, to go toe-to-toe with them, I think is really impressive. And you look at this Vikings team, man, it's early on, but like they too, like the Saints, are one of those teams that are very, very shocking. And whether it's Kevin O'Connell's offense or it's just that maybe they're off to a good start and everything's just clicking right now, but
I think it's part of. I mean, it's got to be both, right? Like you don't get a 97-yard touchdown pass to Justin Jefferson, right? Without the offensive scheme working, without Justin Jefferson being Justin Jefferson, but it also wasn't like a 5-yard dink the pass out towards the sticks and then have Justin Jefferson make a play. That was Sam Darnold getting 48 air yards on a pass, right?
Yeah.
I didn't necessarily know that Sam Darnold still had that in his bag. So like Sam Darnold looks like a serviceable quarterback right now, and maybe something more than that, and it's something that I think a lot of people around the league were not necessarily expecting. I did say an off season ago that I expected Sam Darnold to be starting games in the NFL very soon again, while he was still a member of the San Francisco 49ers. So never wrong, just early on that one. But I think he was obviously impressive. Even the other supporting cast, Jalen Naylor was impressive on his 3 receptions as well. You have solid stable of running backs, right? Ty Chandler ran for 8.2 yards per carry. This is a Vikings offense that is kind of pushing all the right buttons. Meanwhile, I'm just not sure what the deal is with the 49ers just not quite being able to cash in when you would expect them to do so. Brock Purdy taking 6 sacks in this game. Yeah, a little bit of trouble there. And maybe it's just a blip, right? We saw a couple of blip games last year from the 49ers, and maybe they bounce back again. But they got to be ready for they play the Lions this upcoming week. Is that this week? Oh no, they play the Rams this week. That's the big game. Yeah, they got to be ready, because although the Rams, have some issues with everybody in that team being hurt. In fact, they got dismantled by the Cardinals. The Matt Stafford could always pull something out of the hat.
Yeah, it's for the Niners. It's one of those kind of rare things. We saw it last year with the Niners. They had, I think, what was it, a 3-game losing streak, 2 game like back-to-back losses. And so they kind of have that. They kind of had that stretch where they did lose a couple of games and they struggled and they couldn't really find their groove. But then once they did, you started to see this Niners team be really, really good. Mm-hmm. And it's always the same thing with the Niners every year, I feel like. And I don't know if it's just me, but at the beginning of the season, they seem kind of shaky coming out of the gate. They're never really a team that doesn't figure themselves out at the very beginning of the season. And they don't figure themselves out until until December, late November. And then when they figure themselves out, they're like one of the tougher teams to stop, and they just get on such a roll going into the playoffs. So I do think this is one of those type of things where you got to brush it off. But I give credit to Kevin O'Connell, and I said this at the beginning of the season when they had JJ McCarthy, is one of the big things that I think Sam Darnold and JJ McCarthy are in is a quarterback friendly system. That is what Kevin O'Connell's offense is. It's a very quarterback friendly system. It's tailored to the quarterback. It's tailored for what the quarterback reads are, what coverages he can pick, what coverages he can change, what coverages he can adjust, who he wants on the field, which route he's throwing to, offensive line adjustments, et cetera, et cetera. And Kevin O'Connell, I mean, we saw it last year with Josh freaking Dobbs, how well it was able to work when he had Josh Dobbs winning him games out of nowhere for some reason. So it doesn't surprise me with Sam Darnold, that they are able to get some wins. But man, for Minnesota, this is a early win for them that could really pay off if they continue to stay in this, if they can continue to stay winning, because down the stretch in the NFC North a
spicy, NFC North a spicy division, right?
Yeah.
With the Vikings are in first place in the NFC North right now, right? And he talked I think you maybe wrote the Vikings off a little bit harder than I necessarily did. I didn't think they'd be one of the worst teams in the league coming in, because I thought the overall roster was good enough, although they had certainly lost a lot of playmakers to where I was not picking them to win a wild card spot. I think if I could go back now in time, I would probably change that pick. But they're at the top of the NFC North. Lions are 1-1, Packers are 1-1. Bears are 1-1. It's spicy division right there. All of a sudden, with the Vikings in pole position and waiting to play the Packers in 2 weeks.
It's just fun too. The NFC North this year is it's a fun division. We talked about it in our division previews. It's going to be a fun division to watch all season long. So first down, done with that. Second down now. We'll stay in the NFC North. Green Bay Packers. We talked about this last week. How can the Packers win without Jordan Love? Well, I'll tell you how they'll win. They'll run the ball with Josh Jacobs a bajillion times. Still got the win. They still got the win. They still got it done. And they did it with Malik Willis, who was in the building 3 weeks ago. And fast forward 3 weeks later, this man won for the Green Bay Packers as a quarterback for the Green Bay Packers. But you got to give credit to Matt LaFleur, though, Kedrick, because this was a Matt LaFleur masterclass. The Packers ran the ball like crazy. They ran it 53 out of 67 times in this game. Josh Jacobs had over 151 rushing yards out of the Packers' 261 yards rushing. And this is an interesting stat here too. The Packers recorded the highest total of rush yards in a quarter since 2011 when the Broncos played the Patriots in Denver. Denver lost that game, but they accounted for over, I think, 171 rush yards total in that game. I might be wrong on the math, but good for the Green Bay Packers, but also good for this, good for Matt LaFleur because, man, holy cow, this was everything that you would want scripted in your game plan to go well. It went well. They didn't try to lose that game for themselves. They had opportunities to try and go up for more. They played the conservative route, and it worked.
Yeah, the first half of this game was certainly more impressive, in my opinion, from a play calling perspective than the second half. Packers were limited quite a bit in the second half. Indianapolis kind of got it together in stopping the run, which is to be expected. And Indianapolis had a chance to win this game, had several chances to win this game. A.D. Mitchell, too many dropped passes. There were not perfectly placed balls by Anthony Richardson all the time, but like a drop here there by A.D. Mitchell, a drop here there by some of these other wide receivers, and this is a different ball game. I cannot believe how much the Packers just ran all over the Colts in the first half.
Yes.
Still, like you have Matt LaFleur. We've reached the have you seen my tweet part of the show. Early in the week last week, I said Matt LaFleur, do the right thing, run the triple option, and we saw a couple of triple option plays in this one, which was phenomenal. I think the first half came to remind you just like Matt LaFleur is a great offensive mind in the league, and I think that we have not gotten to see him at his best and his team operating the offense that Matt LaFleur would like to play at all times throughout his tenure with the Green Bay Packers. But also, there comes a point in every season, and maybe the first half was this point in every season, where I find myself still shocked that Matt LaFleur has not won a Coach of the Year award.
No. Oh my God.
So since Matt LaFleur has joined the Packers in 2019, John Harbaugh won Coach of the Year in 2019. The Ravens went 14-2 that season, and ended up losing in the divisional round to the Titans 28-12. In 2020, Kevin Stefanski won the Coach of the Year award. That team went 11-5. Was the team that won that wild card game over the Browns, over the Steelers. The first wild card, won the first playoff game for the Browns in like a million years. In 2021, Mike Vrabel won Coach of the Year, who does not have a job anymore, and they lost in the divisional round. In 2022, Brian Daboll won Coach of the Year for a team that went 9-7-1. And like, which highlight was winning a game not in America that season, by the way. Like, whoop-de-doo for Brian Daboll. And then Kevin Stefanski won again last season for a team that went 11-6 because like it didn't have a functioning quarterback for the whole season. But Matt LaFleur only, took this guy, Jordan Love, who everyone said sucked, and turned him into like an MVP caliber quarterback in a matter of 2 months. So like whatever. But yeah, I don't understand how Matt LaFleur doesn't have a Coach of the Year award still. He's not going to win it this year, I'm sure, because expectations are too high for him. That's the thing. So whatever. But yeah, absolute masterclass. Josh Jacobs was a menace in this game, rushing for 5 yards per carry on 30.
Good Lord.
30 attempts on the ground. Yeah. Well, what a menace for the Packers. And if Packers have a guy who, and you're not going to have Josh Jacobs run the ball 30 times a game if Jordan Love is in the game, but when you know that he is there and can do that, this changes what this team can do. Because I think the Packers weren't as confident running Aaron Jones at that volume. And if the Packers are confident running Josh Jacobs at that kind of volume, watch out.
Yeah. And this is one like that. That's even perfect what you said. Like last year, like the last few years when they've had Aaron Jones, and maybe this is just like for me, I've always kind of considered Matt as like a guy who just like the last couple of years refused to run the ball with Aaron Jones. It's probably now we know why. It's because what you just said there. Like they do not have a guy who is as durable and can be able to take the pounding of those carries time and time and time and time again. And they finally got a guy in Josh Jacobs who can do that. And in not only can he do it, but he can do it effectively. I mean, holy cow, getting 151 yards. He could have had a touchdown if he didn't fumble, which is, impressive enough, but but holy cow, I'm just happy that they are able to run the football and able to utilize their rushing attack again. Cause this is something that Matt LaFleur hasn't had in quite a while, has been able to utilize his running game and set up the pass.
And the Matt LaFleur run game, like we saw in the first half of this game, it is a thing of beauty. It is a thing of beauty.
It's very nice. It's just like chef's kiss. It's like a chef's kiss when you watch it. I do want to give credit, though, as well, along with the running game, Kedrick, to Malik Willis, because this dude just came in 3 weeks ago, and now all of a sudden, starting for the Green Bay Packers, doesn't know the playbook, doesn't know much of the signals, doesn't know much of the calls. He goes out 12 for 14, throws a tud in this game, his first career touchdown pass.
Yeah, he came into this game throwing no touchdowns and 3 interceptions in his career.
Yeah, and it's just incredible. And you got to give credit to Malik Willis because he didn't come in and throw this game away. Did not come in and throw this game away. He was asked to do what you're supposed to do. Manage the game, manage the offense, take what the defense gives you, don't turn it over. And he did that so well. 12 for 14. Yeah. That is a really impressive stat line.
No, there was basically no decision that Malik Willis made in this game that I was left scratching my head in. I thought that he did everything that was asked of him and nothing more. And that's what you want. You want a guy who can come in and steal you a game. No, I told you this a little bit before the show. I want to show you the Malik Willis pass chart from this game because it is hilarious. And this is why, if you do not watch the show on YouTube, you should do so. YouTube.com/@snapthepigskin. Because you're going to see this hilarious image of the Malik Willis passing chart of him completing 2 passes 10 yards or more down the field. Everything else was close.
And then there's that one little there's the one little circle.
There's the one F it Romeo Dubs down there somewhere pass. After which Malik Willis slapping his head, having the time of his life. Which also incredible contortionist catch by
that
Romeo
was
Dubs
insane.
But yeah, the Malik Willis passing chart just shows he did everything that was asked of him. He didn't do anything more than that. He completed a few passes behind the line of scrimmage. Even still, though, he didn't complete as many passes behind the line of scrimmage just like Dak did in that Week 1 game against Cleveland, right? Where Mike McCarthy is trying to create the run game out of the pass game. But yeah, what a game for Malik Willis. Really impressive. I'm confident enough that he could come back in and repeat that kind of performance against Tennessee. It's not necessarily guaranteed, but I think you feel good enough rolling the dice with Malik Willis for at least one more week. I don't necessarily know that I want to see him out there against the Vikings, but everything that we're hearing out of Packers camp seems to be that they think the possibility of Jordan Love actually playing this week is real. It doesn't actually seem to be propaganda. It doesn't actually seem to be smoke and mirrors. Rob Domofsky of ESPN is parroting that same line saying no, the Packers actually think this. So we'll see. Would be awesome to see Jordan Love back. Obviously, if you're a Green Bay Packers fan, I think you can tread water for another week. I think if you're a Packers fan, you want to see him back before the Vikings come to town.
Yeah, and that's going to be a big game too. Yep. If they can, it's a very early division test. If you beat Minnesota, that is very huge for your team to get up in the NFC North standings early, because the Lions, Detroit doesn't look that good. They didn't look good against the Rams. They didn't look good against the Bucks. So this could be an early chance for Green Bay to pounce on that division lead early. No pun intended as well. for the Lions as well. Moving on, speaking of another team that is in part of the cat-like variety, the Cincinnati Bengals. We've talked.
Like, I think it's just a cat.
Yes, cat. It's just a cat, a Bengal tiger. But the Bengals right now struggling. We've talked about them a couple times here on this show. We've said the same thing from the Bengals. They're kind of in a tough situation. This potentially is the last ride with this Cincinnati Bengals crew with some of the pieces that they have. And they're 0-2 to start the year. They lost to the Kansas City Chiefs at Kansas City. Was a close game. They lost by 1 point to the Kansas City Chiefs. Jamar Chase, though, during that game, showed some frustration in that game. Got into sportsmanlike conduct. Zach Taylor had to calm him down on the sidelines after he was losing his mind. He also has said, too, that he will not be doing an extension for the rest of the season. Will not be talking about a contract extension now. And you can tell the frustration is showing from him, and it's showing in this offense. I do have concerns with this Bengals team, Kedrick. I think going 0-2 to start the year, not ideal. Now, you have a chance to kind of right a wrong with a Monday Night Football game coming up against the Commanders. Potentially an easy win for you to get yourself back in the win column. But it doesn't look good right now in Cincinnati, and the Bengals could potentially be in trouble if they don't find wins and they don't find answers fast for this team.
Yeah, I think you're a little bit more down on them than I am. Like, by all metrics, Joe Burrow outplayed Patrick Mahomes on Sunday, and like, it wasn't particularly close either. I mean, Joe Burrow actually pushed the ball down the field quite a bit better. He didn't get intercepted multiple times like Patrick Mahomes did. Patrick Mahomes actually generated a negative EPA per play in this game, compared to Joe Burrow, who had a respectable, 0.05. Yeah, it's certainly a problem that you lost that week 1 game to the Patriots, but like, no one, I think otherwise, if it weren't for the fact that the Bengals did lose in week 1, I don't think anybody's actually looking at the Cincinnati team and thinking there's a problem if they go out and lose to Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs by 1 point. I'm not necessarily so down on the Bengals. Certainly, you don't want to see your superstars unhappy. And you did kind of give up this game late and let a last-second field goal walk off and beat you. But Joe Burrow has looked good enough. The defense is what it is. Not very good at stopping the run still, but good enough against the pass. And maybe those numbers are aided quite a bit by the 2 interceptions that Patrick Mahomes threw, and like one of them really not a good ball for Patrick Mahomes to throw at all. But I don't know. I'm not that worried about the Bengals, except for the fact that the team that you and I said before the season, maybe 4th place in this division, is sitting alone at the top of the AFC North at 2-0. 2-0, the Bengals and Ravens, who were our respective picks to win the division, are sitting at 0-2, and the Browns are 1-1.
Oh, and it's just like for Cincinnati, there's so many things too in this game that could have gone the Bengals' way that we may not be sitting there. I mean, the pass interference call that.
Yeah, that was a lame pass interference call.
Yeah, the pass interference call, I think, is probably the big one that I would say you have to look, when you look back on. That's one of those calls. It's like, If there was any case of the refs giving the Chiefs all the calls, that's one of those cases.
Enough.
It's one of those cases.
The only time I am sympathetic to that is like on roughing the passer calls that are soft as hell.
Yeah.
Because Pat Mahomes loves to sell those roughing the passer
Oh,
calls.
yes, he does. And so it's tough. But I think for Cincinnati, they've got to have an answer. They got the Commanders coming up. This is a winnable game for them. And I know that, yes, they're frustrated. They, came close to pulling off a big win against Kansas City in Kansas City. They've done it before multiple times, and they didn't get the job done in the regular season. It's frustrating. Now you have to gather yourself and go out and beat a Commanders team that ideally is not that good. They are not that good. You want to know how not that good the Commanders are? They did not score a single offensive touchdown against the Giants last week, and the Giants scored 3 in their game, and the Commanders still won. That's how bad this Commanders team is. So they have a chance to kind of go out and kind of blow the doors off this game too and possibly win. So
yeah, that Commanders,
I give credit to that.
That is one of my favorite things from the weekend.
That was it's
the Giants.
wild.
The Giants scored
it's
3
wild.
touchdowns. The Commanders didn't score a single touchdown. Went 0-6 in the red zone, and the Giants still lost.
If you can't beat a team like that, you do. There's some real problems going on there.
Yeah, Giants are bad. Might be the worst team in the league.
Sweet. Well, they aren't as bad as this team, and I have a lot to talk about this team, and I'm going to get my glasses for this one to talk about because I have a lot to say about the team that we're about to talk about, the Carolina Panthers. The Panthers may go down in NFL history as one of the worst teams I have ever seen in all of professional sports. They may, bounce back every once in a while, but they may go down. The 2024 Panthers may go down as the worst team I have ever seen in NFL history with my own 2 eyeballs connected into my eye sockets. They lost to the Chargers this past Sunday. Wasn't even close. Chargers blew the daylights off of them. And the week before, the Saints blew the daylights off the Chargers, or the Saints blew the daylights off the Panthers. And you want to know how bad this Panthers team is? There's so many things I could start with, and it starts with not even 5 weeks into the season, they bench Bryce Young for Andy Dalton. Bears quarterback Andy Dalton. They also have a owner who is
Andy Dalton, famously known as being a quarterback for the Chicago Bears.
Yes.
Yes, definitely not for another CB initial team.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and that goes to show why the Panthers are a bad team. They also have a cat crazy owner. See how I did the pun there? I used the word cat. Cat crazy owner.
It doesn't work if you have to point out every joke.
I have to. I'm sorry.
No.
But anyways, they have an owner who really is bad. Really bad. Since taking over for this team in 2018, and since buying the team in 2018, the Panthers are 31-70. It is the worst record during this span, and it was actually the second worst record during the span before the Jets won against the Tennessee Titans this past Sunday. So that was something that was very huge for the Panthers. So now they're kind of one of those teams that are pretty bad. David Tepper also has been one of those owners that has been very hands-on with everything. He wanted to go get Bryce Young. The Panthers basically got rid of all their superstars. They got rid of Christian McCaffrey, DJ Moore, and Brian Burns. On top of that, they didn't even get a first-round pick out of it. They only probably got one, and it was the pick that they used for the quarterback that's now benched. They also have had consecutive games right now without leading in the fourth quarter. They've had 20 consecutive games without leading in the fourth quarter. That is terrible, terrible stuff. And Kedrick, I talk about this because I say this with the Carolina Panthers team. They may not win a game this year. They may go down as the first team ever to lose every single regular season game this year. And no matter how much you try to convince me, I will just completely blow it off by saying Carolina just isn't good this year. They have they got rid of all their superstars.
I was gonna try to convince you that Carolina is good. That's what you're implying here? Is that my take was that the Carolina Panthers are a good football team?
Somewhat serviceable, if anything. But
yeah, weird that you'd think that would be my take. No. I will go on record and say the Carolina Panthers are a not good football team. I know that's bold to say. And with an election coming up soon, that might get me canceled. But what I find most disheartening about benching Bryce Young, because I think that's where the real story for the Carolina Panthers is this week. Because it's not just the Panthers are bad, because we expected the Panthers to be bad. What is happening with Bryce Young, I think, is really sad. And is like the thing that we really hope doesn't happen to rookie quarterbacks in the league, where they come out, they get crushed, and they look broken. Bryce Young looks broken. Bryce Young doesn't look like anything that he looked like at Alabama. The screenshot heard round the NFL globe this past week was after him throwing an interception, and he just looks dejected and like he wants to cry. And yeah, he's shot. And
I like Bryce Young too.
Yeah, there's no, I don't think there's anybody that's, necessarily rooting against him from a human perspective. What is very tragic is that you brought in Dave Canales, who has resurrected the career of Geno Smith, who has resurrected the career of Baker Mayfield. And I don't know if this is coming down from ownership right away to say we're done with Bryce Young. Well, you need to move on to something else.
Yeah.
Or if this is Canales saying he doesn't have it. I want to evaluate the rest of the roster here in my first season as head coach. I think either way, it is very sad. I think either it is very sad for the long-term state of the Panthers if David Tepper is coming in, putting his fingerprints all over the development of Bryce Young right away and saying, Dave Canales, I don't care if you want to keep evaluating him or not. Which I think that obviously would be like, okay, then why did you bring Canales in the first place? My guess is that this is actually a Canales-led move. And he said, no, I've seen enough of Bryce Young. And like from a guy who I think, Noah, you and I both give a lot of credit at being able to evaluate and develop quarterbacks. If he is saying, like, no, we need to be done with Bryce Young, I think that's really, really sad for what I think is a career that is effectively over. For Bryce Young, maybe somebody else can resurrect him as a backup somewhere. But yeah, I think something outside of the National Football League is calling his name soon.
It's tough for me to watch quarterbacks, especially a guy like Bryce Young, go down like this, and especially for a guy who was so successful in college. I mean, you look at it, made it to, won multiple SEC championships, won the Heisman Trophy, got to the college football playoff, and now he comes to the NFL, and the Panthers have kind of crushed his dream. And there was something out there. There was an article out there that said it was a possible Dave Canales move that pushed the Panthers to make this change with Bryce Young for Andy Dalton. And I feel bad for him. I mean, like it also is too, it's like there is a chance maybe he could still be a starting quarterback, but maybe in another league. I mean,
he's not going to do that though.
Yeah, but it's also like too, does he want to go like even to the UFL? the CFL, like you don't have many options. And then even too, as a backup quarterback, like it's tough. I mean, like it's tough because watching him and just seeing his confidence just get absolutely crushed. I mean, this was a guy that, has, has a great energy, brings a lot of positive attitude and positive energy to the locker room. And to go out there and watch him play on Sunday and just see him get absolutely killed by these teams and just his confidence get diminished, it's just rough. Now, there is maybe a possibility that he could save his career. I mean, we look at it too. Look at Baker Mayfield and look at Sam Darnold. Now, those two went on to have, those two right now are having very good careers so far, or at least reviving their careers.
Mm-hmm.
Does Bryce Young maybe get a second chance somewhere with a coach that can save him? Possibly, but it's very, 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 very small because who wants to take on that challenge of trying to make him a starting quarterback again? That's very hard to do.
I think the difference there too is that Bryce Young was also outside of the prototypical mold for an NFL starting quarterback, right?
Yeah.
He's one of these really short guys that I think is harder to fix probably in the eyes of some, right? Sam Darnold was always still this prototypical NFL prospect, right? There are lots of reasons to be excited about Sam Darnold. Baker Mayfield, maybe not, not a super tall guy, right? Still a little bit shorter, but like has all that moxie, has all that confidence in him, has always had that going back to his time at Oklahoma. And that is, I think, shot out of Bryce Young right now. So I think someone's going to be hard pressed to find a comparison with him. And I'm no expert at evaluating quarterbacks by any means, but like, yeah, it's tragic to see
Not good.
what we saw here, and is one of the very fastest turnarounds from a number one overall pick, highly heralded, to nothing really quickly. And goes to show you that Texans Titans game way back,
Texas Colts.
Texans Colts game 2 seasons ago, where the Texans want to lose that game to tank and get the number one overall pick. They don't. And CJ Stroud lands in their lap. And we saw on Sunday night, man, CJ Stroud looks like a damn quarterback, man. And they could be stuck with Bryce Young right now. And maybe the situation is different. Maybe the situation is different because the Texans wouldn't have had to unload all of this talent, all of these draft picks. Maybe the universe, the ripple effects happen in mysterious ways. But like right now, it looks really like, man, Lovie Smith, what he did to get himself, fired and chewed out on the way out the door by winning that game. Sure looks like it did the Houston Texans a lot of favors.
It did like multiple teams a lot of favors. Maybe I don't know if it did the Bears yet because with Caleb Williams, but
I'll find out.
But like it's tough but also too, you look at this team. Even regardless, I will say this with Bryce Young being benched, you look at this team regardless. Andy Dalton's not going to change the fact this team is terrible.
No, it's a move to say, let's bring in someone who can stabilize this and maybe lead a drive or two a game so that we can actually just evaluate the rest of the talent around the roster from a baseline perspective.
Yeah.
Because we have the evaluation on Bryce Young and it's impeding our evaluation of everybody else on the offense.
Yeah, and it's terrible. I mean, and they could have had DJ Moore. They got rid of him. What's even crazier about that too is they got rid of DJ Moore to get the number one overall pick, and they didn't get a first round pick back, and they let the Bears get it. And the Bears, like, I was looking at this trade the other day, and from just like old flashback, because had to give Sam Jamini a reminder of how good this trade has been for the Bears potentially. They gave up. So the Panthers gave the Bears DJ Moore, a first rounder, a second rounder, or 2 first rounders, 2 second rounders, and to get the number 1 overall pick. So that was with Bryce Young. The Bears got back with those picks Donna Wright, Tyreek Stevenson, and Caleb Williams. They could have been all Panthers. They could have potentially had those picks to build that draft capital and build that team. And the other thing is too, I don't blame Bryce Young as much. I blame Dave Tepper so much for the fact that this organization is just getting ran into the ground by him. I mean, 31-70 since he came in and bought this team in 2018. I mean, that's bad. And yes, sometimes it does work when an owner just takes full control of the team and just says, I'm doing it my way. It does work. But when you have an owner that doesn't know the sport, that doesn't know the analytics, and doesn't care about the fan base, and that's a pretty big important part, then it starts to become a problem. And Dave Tepper is the problem in Carolina. So brutal stuff from the Carolina Panthers. They probably will not win a game this year. I am betting on them to probably not win a game this year. But yeah, so move on. Let's get back to some positive stuff here. Bringing home the bacon. And we got our rookie. We got a rookie this week on Bringing Home the Bacon. Good old Maserati Marv from the Arizona Cardinals. Marvin Harrison Jr. last week didn't get targeted as much by Kyler Murray. This week goes out 4 receptions, 2 touchdowns, and 130 receiving yards, and a blowout of the Rams on Sunday. Maserati Marv gets the slab of bacon. So congrats to Marvin Harrison Jr. He gets to be on our Bringing Home the Bacon wall.
Yeah, Arizona came out this week and just took
the
Rams
put it on
immediately.
Holy cow.
One of these early touchdown passes by Kyler Murray was really impressive. I mean, him not just getting up on his tippy toes because he couldn't see over the offensive line, but having to full jump and pounce up in the air a little bit to deliver the ball downfield to Marvin Harrison, which also just why not just plant your feet, brother? I don't understand. But yeah, it was an impressive throw. Him doing that off platform, and delivering that strike to Marvin Harrison downfield. Yeah, something brewing there. Looks quite good. That connection might be special. And yeah, they dismantled a really, really shorthanded Los Angeles Rams team. So we'll see what Arizona looks like moving forward. But it was an impressive dismantling in week 2 after they took a little bit of time to get going in week 1 against Buffalo.
It was crazy. They almost, if they pulled off that upset against Buffalo and then the next week beat the Rams, they're sitting 2-0.
Yep.
That's pretty impressive. What's also impressive is our Pigskin picks now. And Kedrick, you have the lead after a Thursday night football game that we both got wrong. And
we both got really wrong.
Yeah.
We retook the lead here after last week I was a cumulative 24 points off of the totals. You were a cumulative 23 points off of the totals, but because we both picked the Dolphins to win and then they got smashed by 3 touchdowns, we both doubled our point totals that we were off of just Thursday night. Really bad. But so currently I am averaging a score just off 9 points per game after we were looking real good, 3 point per game difference from the real score after week 1. But the Bills did us in really good there. I'm off 9 points per game. Noah just above that, 9.29 points per game. So I will take the T box first this week and give my picks first going on for our 4 Pigskin picks this week.
Yes, and let's get right into it with our Pigskin Primetime Picks here. The Jets hosting the New England Patriots. Aaron Rodgers getting his first win as New York Jets quarterback for this group last week. They play New England. New England almost winning against Seattle last week. A bogus PI call costed them the game, and the Patriots lose. They will be going on the road. Kedrick, you have the floor. The floor is yours. Jets, Pats. What are we thinking here?
So the Jets defense has not impressed me as of yet. I don't think there's been much difference in the level of play between Jacoby Brissett and Aaron Rodgers, quite frankly. Aaron Rodgers has certainly shown some flashes in week one when he was able to take that free play down the field to Alan Lazard. That was impressive, kind of vintage Aaron Rodgers play. But overall, it's been meh. It's been like middle of the road quarterback play, which is I think what we've kind of been able to expect from Aaron Rodgers the last couple of seasons. Because I don't know what's going to happen here with Jermaine Johnson, who tore his Achilles for the New York Jets, and the Jets already weren't really generating much of a pass rush. Now you don't have Jermaine Johnson. You're still without Hassan Reddick.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that changes this week. I'm going to take the Pats. I'm going to take the Pats. I'm going to take the Pats by 1. Maybe it's close. I know they are not the favorite in this game still. The Pats haven't been all that impressive this year, but I'm still just not buying into the whole New York Jets thing, and the Patriots have been surprising me a little bit. So I'm going to take the Patriots by 1.
Yeah, if this was, I do think the one thing for the Jets that the Patriots, I think, have maybe a little bit of an edge is they do have a little bit of a pass rush. They do have a little bit more pressure. And Aaron Rodgers and that offense, I think, is the only bright spot from this team. The defense really hasn't been impressive. They haven't,
which is the opposite of how we expected this team to be.
Yeah, and that's kind of shocking because this defense the last couple years has been really good under Robert Saleh. For this game though, I think it's at home. It's in prime time. I got to go Jets here. I got to go Jets by 3. I think the running game, they finally started to kind of utilize the running game a bit. They utilized Braylon Allen last week, former Badger, by the way, and Breece Hall. They started to get those guys involved in the offensive passing game. When that happens, it's going to be hard for this Patriots team to stop. And the Patriots almost could have won the game against the Seahawks, but they didn't. I got the Jets winning this one at MetLife. I think I got them winning by 3. It's going to be close, but I got them winning it by 3. So, all right, Sunday Night Football, Kedrick, Chiefs at Falcons. The Atlanta Falcons on Monday night pulled off an upset in primetime. Kirk Cousins pulled off a vintage Kirk Cousins drive to win against the Eagles.
The game too. That's not a vintage thing. Vintage Kirk Cousins on Monday Night Football is losing 9 times in a row. Enough with like the Kirk Cousins historic erasure here. No, vintage Kirk Cousins does not deliver game-winning drives.
I had to lob that one. That was an easy lobber. But anyways, they pulled off an upset against the Eagles. They play the Chiefs. Kansas City is 2-0 to begin the year. Patrick Mahomes and company going to Atlanta. This is going to be their first road test of the year. Chiefs, Falcons, what are we thinking for this game?
That is what I am thinking for this game. I got the Falcons, baby. I got bird noises. Patrick Mahomes, not impressive last week. Not impressive. Do I think Patrick Mahomes is washed? No. However, he has shown an ability to get got. This Falcons defense is okay. Hasn't been all worldly, but this Chiefs defense has not been able to stop the run through 2 weeks. And with Bijan Robinson running last week for, what was it, almost 7 yards per carry for the Atlanta Falcons on Monday night. And yeah, I know that Eagles defense is not that good. The Eagles defense has not impressed me yet over the last 2 weeks, but I got questions there. Kirk Cousins seems to be coming into his own. I know that he said after last night's game that he still thinks that he needs to be better, still has more in him. He only took 1 sack last night. And part of that, yes, again, that Eagles defense, not that impressive, wasn't able to generate a real pass rush against the Atlanta Falcons, but only took 1 sack, passed for 240 yards, 8.3 yards per attempt. He led an impressive game-winning drive with very little time on the clock. I am going to take the Falcons in this one. Give me the Falcons by 3. I think they're going to lean on the ground game. Let Kirk Cousins do some of this vintage play action stuff that he gets done. And the Falcons are going to find a way at home.
Sam Jamidi is going to hate me when I say this, but I got to pick Atlanta. I think they did a really good job being able to run the ball against the Philadelphia Eagles. Philadelphia struggled. They struggled against the Packers in week 1 against Brazil. They kind of let Green Bay get a couple of those big chunk plays. And against the Falcons, too. They let Bijan Robinson and Tyler Algier run the ball on them. And the big thing for Atlanta, they love running the outside zone. They love running outside with those tackles. They love getting, Bijan Robinson and Tyler Algier out.
And if you can run that outside zone and get away from Chris Jones a little bit, all the better to you.
Yeah, and that's going to be huge too. Is if you could keep it away from Chris Jones, tire that defense out, they have a good chance. And I also think too, this is another week for Kirk where he still doesn't look iffy, or he still doesn't look iffy. He looks iffy, and maybe he's able to find some magic late. I got Falcons winning this one by 4. I think Atlanta does keep this game close. Their defense did a good job of holding the Eagles in check, but man, against Patrick Mahomes, how are you going to do? They may get a turnover. They may get a turnover to kind of alter that game, but I still got Atlanta winning this one. Atlanta by 4. And you already used the Falcon sound effect for this one, which I was very impressed by that as well, that you had that saved from last week. All right, last game of our primetime picks here, our Pigskin Primetime Picks, and it was a doubleheader. It's a Monday night doubleheader. This is the first of the 2 doubleheader games, the Jaguars and the Bills. Jacksonville, they have came pretty dang close to, winning some games. They've done a good job at being able to not blow out teams. They have the Bills this week. This is an opportunity for them to try and show up for a game against Buffalo, who beat the ever-living daylights out of the Dolphins and made sushi out of them. So Dolphins, Bills, Jaguars here, Kedrick. Who do you got for this one?
Noah, I want you to tell me who you think the number 1 offense in the National Football League by EPA per play has been through 2 weeks.
That would be the Buffalo Bills.
No, it has been the New Orleans Saints.
Oh, no. Then where'd you put, why the Saints are hitting in this conversation?
Because it's insane that New Orleans has the best offense by EPA per play through 2 weeks. But number 2 in the league is Buffalo.
I was going to say.
Is Buffalo, who has just looked really, really, really impressive through 2 weeks. Obviously had a decent sized comeback of a win over Arizona in week 1, and then dismantled the Dolphins in week 2. Meanwhile, the Jaguars offense has had fits and starts through 2 weeks. What was it? Trevor Lawrence was like 12 of 29 last week, whatever the heck it was. He has thrown 1 touchdown pass through 2 weeks already. We had questions about the offensive weapons. Doesn't look like they are appearing for Jacksonville through 2 weeks. I don't know what that offense expects to be able to get done. And I don't think they're going to be able to outduel Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills, which has looked really good. And that defense has looked more impressive than I expected it to be through 2 weeks. They have been able to stop, 2 quarterbacks who we think are really solid in Kyler Murray and Tua Tagovailoa through 2 weeks. Obviously wasn't Tua for a full 60 minutes last week. But I think that the Bills just have too much firepower. That offense is clicking on all cylinders, and a Jaguars team that has not been able to do much through 2 weeks. I got the Bills by 10.
Yeah.
And maybe, honestly, that's too few points.
Jacksonville's been kind of struggling. Their offense hasn't been getting going. They had multiple times in the red zone where they could have got points last week against the Browns. Did not capitalize on a lot of those opportunities.
They couldn't move the ball against the Browns, which a week ago, Dallas was able to do whatever it wanted against the Browns.
Yeah, and so there's a big problem there in Jacksonville. And it's going to be a big problem this week against Buffalo. I just don't think that Jacksonville is quite there yet. They haven't figured themselves out on offense. They got to figure themselves out pretty quickly here. Week 3 is a very important week. This is where you start to see teams kind of gel into their team and what their team is going to be. Unfortunately for the Jaguars, it's not going to be a good team. I got Bills winning this one by 14, actually. I see them kind of blowing this game out of the water, and it's at home too. I think Josh Allen as well is going to just have his way with the defense. And James Cook, another big day on the ground as well for the Buffalo Bills. So
yeah, if that happens, Noah, your wild card pick of the Jacksonville Jaguars is looking up at an 0-3 record and not very good.
Yeah.
Granted, you did have Baltimore winning the division too, and they're at 0-2. Not that my playoff picks don't have anything to be anything to be criticized. Cincinnati winning the division doesn't look very good either now. But we'll see. Two weeks. There's a lot of time to move in that AFC North. But yeah.
Oh yeah. And it's not looking pretty. Not looking pretty at all for the Jaguars of that AFC South, but still a lot of time left. Yeah, that is for us here today. If you want to watch more of Snap the Pigskin, go to www.youtube.com @Snap the Pigskin, or listen to wherever you get your podcast. You can catch us on Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, and much more. You can also listen to Kedrick's podcast, the Sconnie Six Pack, as well. We will put a link in the description down below as well to where you can find his podcast, and you can also be able to find him on Twitter and also find me on Twitter. And yeah, that does it for us. And with that, happy birthday to the NFL. And this has been another edition of Snap the Pigskin.